Right now, I think you a dirty nigga. Out here in these streets acting like you a young nigga. Like it ain't family over everything. You ought to be shamed, but clearly you too damn crazy for that. And clearly I got it honest. You're my uncle, I respect you, but I don't like you right now. This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Poetic Justice, bonus episode 4, part 1. When we left off, Marisol Lopez made it clear that she was going to let God have his way with Emmanuel Lopez. Posh had managed to get True out of the house for some fun, and Stephanie was preparing for her wedding with CT. This time around, they were going to have a small, intimate wedding with their closest family and friends only, and Stephanie would be one attendee short, because True would not be there. And Stephanie was preparing for the big day in her villa at the Lopez estate in Dallas. Angela asked, "You want LJ to walk you down the aisle again?" Stephanie said, "No, this time I'm going to give myself away. I get that Uncle Manny is going through something, but I can't imagine that as excited as he was that CT and I had finally gotten back together, he would have just passed on the opportunity to walk me down the aisle." Angela asked, "Well, did you call him and remind him?" Stephanie said no. He knew what day and time he needed to be back here. He should have wrapped all that foolishness up in St. Lucia and climbed out of Nadia's bed long enough to show up for me. But he didn't. So the next time I hear from him will be when he contacts me. I ain't begging nobody to do a damn thing for me. Never have and never will. And before you say it, no, I'm not mad at him. The only people who actually need to be here today is me, CT, and the new pastor of the Salvation Center of Dallas. Everybody else is just spectating any darn way. Angela said, "Well, darn, what am I, mincemeat?" Stephanie said, "No, but if the show can go on without True, it can go on without you and anybody else." And then Angela and Stephanie heard a knock at the door. When Angela went to open it, on the other side of the door was Uncle Manny. Stephanie said, "Oh, look what the cat drug in. You decided to make time for your family. I'm so relieved to see you." Manny said, "Doesn't sound like it." Angela said, "I'll give you two some privacy." Then she stepped out of the room because she knew her baby sister was about to give Emmanuel Lopez what for. And she did not even want to be an ear or eyewitness to it. When the door closed, Stephanie said, "Let me tell you something. I lost my daddy before I ever had a chance to really get to know him. And I thought that finding you was a gift from God. And somehow in all this mayhem, I thought that I'd found my place in this family. I thought that who I was and how I was a perfect fit to be the head of the Lopez family. Because I'd finally found my person in my family. The person that I was most like. The one who just got me. Who I would have been if I was born male. Who saw me as his equal, despite the fact that I was born female. And then you pull these shenanigans. You should have stayed in St. Lucia. Because I don't need you walking me down no aisle. I don't need no bad omens over my wedding day. I plan to get it right this time. And I don't need an adulterer standing for me at my wedding. Manny said, "I can understand that you don't think too highly of me right now." Stephanie said, "Don't think too highly of you. Right now, I think you a dirty nigga. And my Aunt Marisol deserves better. It wasn't her damn job to tell you that you got your plaything knocked up. It wasn't her job to betray another woman's confidence. And I don't care what you think. She wasn't doing it for selfish reasons." Manny said, "I know that, Mija." Stephanie said, "Then why in the hell did you use that whole situation with Stanley as an excuse to break her damn heart and embarrass her? Out here in these streets acting like you a young nigga. Like it ain't family over everything. You ought to be shamed, but clearly you too damn crazy for that. And clearly I got it honest. You're my uncle, I respect you, but I don't like you right now. So not only do I not need you to walk me down the aisle, but I'd rather you not be at my wedding at all." Manny said, "This is your wedding day, so I'm going to let you have that. And we'll talk again. Really talk when you get to Puerto Rico. You do still plan to stay at my estate, right?" Stephanie said, "I can make other arrangements if that's a problem." Manny said, "It's only a problem if you make it one. Because you will not stay on my property and disrespect me, Stephanie." Stephanie said, "And I won't stand idly by and watch you disrespect your wife and your children. When I was tripping, you put your foot down. You put me in a damn asylum. Maybe that's what you need. Maybe you need a little stay at the asylum so you can get your head on right. Because you have to have lost your damn mind." Manny said, "Yeah, I'm going to leave before you say something you can't take back. I love you, Stephanie. Congratulations. And then Manny walked out the room. When Angela came back inside, Stephanie said, can you believe him? Angela said, yes, I can. I can't believe you, though. Stephanie said, I can't believe you're not as livid as I am. Angela said, I've talked with Aunt Marisol, and she's leaving it in God's hands. So am I. Stephanie said, well, the Lord sent me. I'm doing the Lord's work. This whole mess right here might just be enough to make me withdraw my bid for Queen Pen, because I ain't with none of this. And Angela was shocked. She said, so the killing and the other crimes aren't enough to deter you, but Uncle Manny cheating on Aunt Marisol is all that it takes for you to decide. Stephanie said, I would never cheat on CT, and I'd put him in the dirt before I'd let him get away with cheating on me. Angela said, Stephanie, never say never. And before the two could finish their conversation, there was another knock at the door. The makeup artist and the hairstylist had arrived. It was go time. 30 minutes later, Stephanie walked down the aisle alone to Donovan on the piano in the Lopez estate garden. She was beautiful, glowing, and radiant. Pregnant with her and CT's second child, her growing baby bump was on full display. As she looked around at the crowd of 20 or so close family members and friends, she was glad to see that her Aunt Marisol was present and her Uncle Manny was not. Before the couple said their adieus, Angela had a surprise. Out of the carefully decorated speakers, a voice that everyone knew so well was projected. It was true, reading one of her poems, perfectly written to capture the miraculous reunion of Corey and Stephanie. Up until that moment, Stephanie and Corey had both held it together. But hearing True's depiction of how the two found love and then found it again had the soon-to-be newlyweds in shambles. And there was not a dry eye in the house. When the adieus were said and the couple was pronounced husband and wife, all assembled went inside to the banquet room for a small reception. Toasts were made, well wishes were given, and then Angela announced that there would be an after party of sorts in the main house at the family complex in Denton, where the family and friends who were present and those who weren't invited to the wedding or weren't available would participate in the family's favorite pastime, to send Stephanie and Corey off to Puerto Rico in style. Meanwhile, in Denver, True was telling Bosch all about her lifelong friendship with Stephanie and Renni, how they'd always been the Three Musketeers, and how she and the family had always enjoyed a good karaoke night, like the one that Angela had planned for Stephanie and Corey's going away party. True said, as a matter of fact, it was at one of those karaoke nights where I ran into Wood and he realized where he knew me from. I picked him up at a bar, and Bar said, you picked him up at a bar? True said, yeah, I picked him up at a bar and I slutted that nigga out. Bosch fell out laughing. True said, but I ain't remember nothing. When Q introduced us, we both realized that we'd already met. Renni was tripping over Q, and Angela had decided to send her to a mental health facility overseas. And Wood was there to be security, make sure things didn't get out of hand, and make sure that she got on that flight. I hadn't paid him any attention, so when I ran into him at the bar, he didn't look familiar to me. He said that I looked familiar to him. I thought that was just a pickup line. What I used to do is I would book 2 rooms, one for me to stay in and one for me to take a fella back to if I found something that I liked. That way he didn't really know where I was resting my head for real. He'd do what we did and I'd be out before he woke up. Since I ain't live in Texas, he'd never see me again. One night stand, no strings attached, yada, yada, yada. So needless to say, when I saw him at my people's house at karaoke night, I was blowed. Come to find out, we were both staying at the same hotel. So I ran into him when I dipped. He showed up back at the hotel bar. He called himself letting me down easy because he said he didn't mess with people that was connected with his fam. And I had to let him know he ain't had to worry about me because I wasn't interested. He had the audacity to be mad because I ain't remember what we had done. Bosh asked, then how y'all end up messing around? True said, around that same time, Stephanie had decided that she wanted to be in the running for Queen Pen. She wanted to replace her Uncle Manny as the head of the Lopez family, and she wanted me to be her right hand. I was already a force to be reckoned with, but I still needed training. And she decided that Big Wood would be the perfect one to train me. He agreed to do it, and we agreed to keep it business. But then he needed a favor. Then True told Bosh all about Wood's proposal that she pretend to be his girlfriend at his family's annual vacation in Denver. Bosh was in stitches, hearing all about Zora and Zyla, what happened with Tasha. He was impressed by the medical skills that True had employed during the car accident. And when she told him about her and Wood returning to the cabin after everyone had left and going on their first date at the poetry slam. Bosh said, so last night you was in your feelings. True said, a little bit. Bosh said, I'm not judging you, but how exactly did you become the kind of person who just picks a nigga up at a bar, takes him down, and moves on? True said, Wood isn't the first man that I loved who died before we could live out all our dreams. I never thought I'd find love again. I never planned to find love again. This time, I refused to even consider finding love again. Then she told him about losing Bo. Then she said, it seems commonplace for a man to be how I am. But I get the feeling that you loved a woman once too. The way that you speak about your girl and the baby that you lost, it sounds like more than something that just happened. You got me talking about all of this because you're trying to get my mind off the fact that I just missed my best friend's wedding. You want me to talk about my past so it doesn't eat me up inside. And I appreciate that. But I just told you more than most people know about me who didn't grow up with me. So you're going to have to come off something. Bosh laughed and said, I grew up in the foster care system, Yonkers, New York. My childhood was wild as hell. I had to fight to survive, and I fought a lot. When I was about 14, I got this one caseworker. She had an affinity for kids like me. Kids that ain't had no family, who were smart but were always in trouble. She'd pick me and a couple other kids up on the weekends, take us to do activities, arts, museums, expose us to things that we normally wouldn't have experienced. One day, she picked me up with a girl named Aaliyah. Me and Aaliyah just clicked. I was 15, she was 14. Shortly after that, I got moved to another group home and I had to change high schools. And who went to that high school? Aaliyah. Aaliyah was in a situation similar to mine, except I was in a group home and she was with a family that was abusing her and taking advantage of her in ways that no young girl should be taken advantage of. What I didn't know at the time was that the man who was taking advantage of her was on the radar of the Lopez family. I was pushing a little weight, nothing major, but I was stacking my funds. I had a plan to get emancipated on my 16th birthday. I was going to handle that man and get Aaliyah out of that situation. I was watching him, and eventually the Lopez family was watching me. Thought I was so slick, moving in silence. I got a little job just to say I had one. A caseworker helped me get a little spot, and a week or so after my emancipation was finalized, I made my move. I handled old boy. During the mayhem, Aaliyah ran away. She came and stayed with me. And one night while I was on the block, I got a visit from one of the generals. He told me that he knew what I did and asked me if I knew who I killed. I ain't admit to nothing. Then he told me he knew where I stayed and that Aaliyah was there alone. And if I knew what was good for me, I'd get in the car. So I got in the car. Then he told me that the cops ain't have no idea who had put in that work. They ain't had no leads because I ain't leave no trail. That I had the kind of skills the Lopez family could use. Since I ain't have no family ties, I was the perfect man for the job. I ain't need to be on the streets pushing dope. The work would be dangerous, but it would pay well. They teach me everything I needed to know and get me and my girl out the hood. So I took them up on the offer. They got her a new identity, got her back in school, made me go back to school. We both graduated and everything. And then she wanted to go to college, and they paid for her to go. It was the first time we'd been apart in 3 or 4 years, and she flourished. She did good in school, graduated with a degree in finance, and got a job at a firm in Virginia. The setup was perfect. Got her out of New York, had her all set up in a townhouse off the grid so she was out of harm's way. And she knew what was up. I was putting in work, and I needed to have her put up so that anybody who might be out there looking for me wouldn't find her and think that they found my Achilles heel. She never asked for much. She asked me for 2 things, things that I couldn't give her. She asked me to marry her under our real names and to spend more time at home. At the time, I was a soldier, the lowest one on the totem pole, you know? Keeping her safe was my responsibility. It wasn't the family's #1 priority. I didn't begrudge the family the fact that they provide security for the families of the generals in the right hands. They outranked me, and they were in positions that were more likely to be targeted by enemies. But soldiers are expendable. They're replaceable. Even lieutenants. Something happened to us or our families. It's a regular part of doing business. I didn't want to put her in the line of fire by getting married under our real names. And my time wasn't mine. She made good money, but she was living well above her means, and I had to put in work to do that. So eventually she settled for what she had, but she wasn't happy with it. And I spent way too many days and nights worried about her, her safety, and how long I was going to be able to keep her. 14 years or so in, she stopped asking for marriage and more time. And then she asked for a baby. And everything in me told me not to do it, that it was too risky. Instead of worrying about one person, I was going to be worried about two. But then she gave me an ultimatum. She was pushing 30, the clock was ticking, and I was going to have to give her something. Or she was going to move on and find somebody who would. So I relented. I was going to give her what she was asking for. What I thought was going to take months of trying didn't. As soon as she got off the pill, she was knocked up. She was ecstatic. And so was I. My girl was pregnant and I was promoted. I was a lieutenant with more free time on my hands. Stacks even blessed me with some soldiers to keep an eye on her, make sure she was safe. And then the doctors put her on bed rest. They said the placenta was attached in a way that was dangerous. If it didn't move of its own volition, she was going to have a C-section. I was home with her for like a week when I got the call that I had to go in. I didn't know how long I was going to be gone, so I dumped a bunch of money in an account and set up for 3 different people to be with her in 3 8-hour shifts. Me and my team was in the field for 2 weeks when things went bad. We done everything just how we needed to. The play was perfectly planned out, but you know, ain't no perfect plan. Things went awry. One of my soldiers got dropped. I only had 2 choices, leave her or go back for her. I never left a man or a woman behind, injured or dead, and those weren't the circumstances under which I wanted to change that. Had I left her behind, nobody would have faulted me. She would have been a casualty. I would have been going home, and another team would have been sent in to clean up. But that would have meant leaving her for dead, and I couldn't do that. So I went back in, and it cost me. I compromised my cover, and I had to go underground. Something happened. Something went wrong, and then Bosch lost it. And instinctively, True went in to comfort him. She held Bosch while he cried like a baby. When he was able to pull himself together, he said, "I'm sorry. You're going through enough. You don't need my pain." True said, "Stop it. Why do people always do that? Why do people apologize for having feelings, for being human? It's okay to not be okay. You spent, 15 years of your life with one woman? You was faithful to her?" Bosch said, "Yeah." True said, "You loved her, and she died, and your baby died. You get to cry, Bosch. That hurts. It's supposed to. You found a way to live with that pain, but you don't come out of things like that unscathed. That kind of pain leaves residuals. That explains how you became known for being good for a good time and not a long time. And we got that in common." Bosch chuckled and said, "That kind of pain makes you never want to give anybody your heart again." True said, "It makes you afraid to love ever again." Bosch said, "It makes you never want to be responsible for anybody else's heart or life." True said, "It makes you want to throw yourself into your work." Bosch said, "And avoid anything that even remotely looks close to an attachment." True said, "You know what? I'm glad you're here, Bosch. I would hate to be stuck on this estate with somebody who can't relate. Or worse, stuck here with somebody who might accidentally on purpose fall in love with me. Because in all the time I was single, I lost count of all the niggas that I let have a little bit of this good who turned around professing their undying love." Bosch just fell out laughing. Then he said, "I guess we got that in common too." Soon as the broad even looked like she trying to catch feelings, I cut her back. She said, "Man, I can't wait to have this baby. I need a big O in the worst way." Then Bosch said, "Well, you're going to have to stop rubbing my back like that. Otherwise, you're going to get what you're not asking for." True didn't even realize that after Bosch had sat up from leaning against her crying, she'd still been rubbing his back tenderly and gently, like he was a toddler that needed comforting. True said, "Yeah, so we probably should figure out what we're going to eat for dinner so I can go back over to the main house. Because I'm not the kind of woman you can threaten with a good time. I will make you pay like you weigh, nigga."